Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Our special guest today is Laura Co, CEO of Snapology. Laura, along with her sister Lisa, founded Snapology in 2010. Snapology's mission is to provide educational play to children using Lego bricks, Kinects, and other interactive mediums. Snapology provides coding, robotics, and STEAM, which, if you don't know what that means, is science, technology, engineering, art, and math programs to children of all abilities, including gifted children and those with extra needs. Laura oversees the daily operations of Snapology franchise, including franchisee support, lead generation, systems development, curriculum development, and function of the local Pittsburgh South franchise. Welcome, Laura, to Where Passion and Purpose Collide.
Hey there. Thanks for having me.
We're excited. Your story is so delicious, as Tracy would say.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here and talking with you guys today.
Yeah, I can't wait to sink my teeth into this because your backstory is incredible. I mean, you are so relatable to so many moms. There you are, a single mom, you're working full time, you're trying to raise these two wonderful little boys who aren't that interested in sports. What do you do? What happens? What happens next?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I love being a mom more than anything in the world. I mean, that's sort of the number one job, right? Everything comes after that. And as I was kind of looking for business opportunities for myself and just trying to get through daily life and raise, happy, healthy children, when I was trying to find activities for them when they were young, I just really struggled because they weren't that competitive. They didn't really show an interest in a lot of sports. And particularly with little boys, I think it happens with little girls as well. But particularly with little boys, there was a real gap in the community. There really just weren't that many opportunities for them. And I struggled. I really wanted my kids to thrive in a social environment. And I had trouble finding it. And so that's how Snapology was born. My older son, Sebastian, was a crazy Lego kid. Loved to build, loved to do different engineering, play with different engineering toys. And it just all sort of, my worlds collided. It all just sort of came together, and that's how we came up with the idea.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. I remember my son when he was little. We spent hours with Legos together, and then my grandson and the next grandson and now the great grandson. And that not only is it great for the eye-hand coordination when they're little, but it's so creative. So, but you mentioned that Sebastian kind of had this engineering side of him, which brings me to the question of born this way, nurtured this way kind of question, because you have a very strong math background, correct?
I do. So I'm an actuary by trade. So I'm a big math nerd. I have a Bachelor of Science in mathematics, and I've always gravitated towards that kind of thing. It is interesting though. Like I call my boys mathletes, but they're both gifted, but math isn't necessarily their thing. They do very well in math, but I wouldn't say that they have the love of it that I have. Not a whole lot of people have the love of math that I have. They love history, they love learning, they love science. They sort of go both sides with sort of the math and science and the English and social studies. They just love to learn. So they definitely got that from me. But it's interesting that just the different things that your children gravitate towards. And in fact, Sebastian just left for college. He's in a business entrepreneurship program. So he sort of picked up more of the business ownership side that I think he saw in myself. And actually his father also owns a business as well. And so I think he saw that entrepreneurial mindset and, sort of gravitated that way.
So
Wow.
great.
Amazing. It's
Yeah,
such a
I love this argument of nature versus nurture. That there is a part of our children that pick up from us from what they observe in us. You building a business, their father building a business, your love for, problem solving and the sciences and engineering and all of those math kind of thing. So talk to us about how this business, which came out of, I need to keep my boys busy and there aren't a whole lot of activities for them. How did that grow into more than just trying to plug a problem here, into a true passion at some point?
Yeah, so the boys were really little when we started Snapology. They were 5 and 6, and when we started the business, of course, you always hope it succeeds. You always, you have that dream that it'll succeed. And we started very simply with just writing. I had a friend who was a teacher, and we hired another teacher to write some curriculum for us. We started with just 4 programs. There were 2 robotics programs, and there were 2 theme-based programs using Lego. And we started just really small and offered some programs, and they just took off. I mean, it was very clear I was not the only parent that was experiencing this issue. And even with the first summer that we offered summer camps, the comments that I got from the parents afterwards, like, thank you so much for having this. My kids really enjoy it. They're thriving, they're learning, like this is their sport. One of the programs we work with is called First Lego League, and they often call themselves the sport for the mind. And so that's kind of what this is for kids. It's their wheelhouse. And I think what really helped ramp Snapology, and really how we got from that first camp and that first sort of program just for my own kids, how we got to where we are now, which is, 166 locations across the world.
Wow.
How we got there was because parents love this. They need this. They want their kids in these programs. They realize it's so clear the benefits that kids get out of these programs. When they take our programs, they just have that thirst for knowledge. They just have that increased desire to do well. And it's funny because I mentioned my son going off to college. Well, all of my first students were my son's age. And so when he has friends over, I look at these kids, and they were all Snapology kids, 10 years ago. And now I would say the vast majority of them are in STEM fields. A lot of them are going into engineering, and I pick on them a lot. I'm like, I'm the one that made you an engineer. You know that, right? And they laugh. But it's true that it's that early exposure to kids that really, gives them the confidence and helps them, want to grow and learn in that area. And I think that's really the key.
Right. And I think kudos to you for finding this area that really needed to be fortified, that really needed to be amplified, especially in the schools, because there are so many schools that are cutting out their arts programs and have been cutting those really critical programs out for the past few years. So finding this niche and then realizing afterwards that, hey, I'm not the only one who is looking for a solution like this. There are so many parents that are looking for, like you said, the sports for the mind type of extracurricular activities for their kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. And I feel bad for schools. It's hard on them. I mean, they're trying to get kids to pass certain tests. They're trying to get them to learn certain like rote, skills. And in doing all of that, you can't do what we do at Snapology. You can't have all of the hands-on interactive learning experiences. You just can't do all the things that we're able to do. They just don't have the time. And so we love partnering with schools because of that, because they're giving the kids all of the basics and sort of priming them. And then we get to come in and just have a ton of fun. You know, we just get to go in there and build robots, and the kids don't even understand that they're learning. They're loving, you know, that they have to code their robot. They don't really care that coding is, you know, educational. They're like, I want to see if that alligator is going to bite my hand when I put my finger in it, you know. So they're completely good with learning in that sort of hands-on interactive type environment, which it has just so many benefits long term.
Right. They're having a blast and they're vicariously learning.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Passive learning. Yeah, it's passive learning. Yeah, yeah.
which is the best way. I think we retain better when what we're learning is in a fun, playful, hands-on, interactive kind of way. It's so interesting because when I envision a lot of what you are doing, it seems like it's face to face in group situations. And there's, like you said, so many beautiful benefits of that kind of interaction and, you know, mental gymnastics while you play and all of those kinds of things. But this last year and a half, you haven't been able to interact physically as much. So I'm guessing you've had to make some changes, or even kids have changed where, you know, they're learning differently today than the way they've learned in the past. Can you address that?
I can, yeah. You know, COVID's been tough. I mean, it's tough on everybody, and you know, it's been really tough on kids. You know, my biggest concern with COVID is just that, you know, we see this slide in education, and the bigger piece of it is that, you know, at Snapology, our main goal is to have kids love, you know, teach children to love learning, right? To love, to be able to express themselves creatively, to just love, have that passion for education and learning. And they do that because of all the fun that we're having. And COVID kind of put a damper on that, because you're right, in an online environment, which is where most kids were sort of put in during COVID. First off, online teaching is considerably harder than I think anybody ever sort of thought it was, right? I mean, I think we learned that pretty quick. And the same thing happens for us. I mean, our programs are meant for the children to be working side by side with each other, you know, hand in hand, you know, building over top of each other and collaborating and solving problems. And that's what STEAM is fundamentally, are those ideas. And you can't really do that. Well, you can. It's very difficult to do that online. And so that's what we were faced with. We were faced with those challenges. So in the beginning of COVID, we focused on the social aspect, because what really happened to kids in the beginning was they were in school one day, and then with no warning the next day, it was like, yeah, no, you're done, and you can't see any of your friends, and you can't go play with Johnny down the street. And it was like this abrupt, like, holy cow, like, I'm stuck here with my parents and I've got nobody to play with kind of situation. And it was tough on kids. And so our first goal was, look, we're not going to get them to be necessarily working hand in hand with another child or working with a teammate. But you know what? We can get them online with their friends, talking to each other. We can get them socializing. We can get them building, and we can get some hands-on interaction and some academic enrichment while they're working alone. And we can create sort of a more team environment and a group environment and encourage them to discuss and talk to each other. And so we took our programs and we basically came up with about 60 hours of curriculum that were really fun and social in nature, that filled that gap. And then as COVID lingered way longer than anybody thought it would, we realized, all right, we got to up our game here. We've got to now, I mean, this is lasting too long. Kids need more, right? They need more than we could give them. And so we came up with some really cool games around Minecraft. So the kids would get on the same Minecraft server, and a teacher would guide them through different activities where they had to work together with a partner or as a team in order to do different things. And so we were able to introduce that element of partnering and teamwork and collaboration and problem solving. We were able to get that in there through video games, really. And then we came up with another program that I just absolutely love. We have a program we call Escape Snapology. So when you're in person, it's kind of like the games that they have for adults where you have to unlock the door to get out. We don't lock children in a room, don't worry. But what we do is we tell them that they need to unlock a box. And so we give them different puzzles and things. And in person, it's super fun. The kids love it. They're all themed. And we thought, well, let's do that online. So we took and we put it online. And so the children work in small groups, 3 or 4 kids, and they have to solve puzzles. So they might be around, like a Harry Potter or wizarding theme, or it might have been around Star Wars. Or we had a really fun Pokemon themed type program. And they go on and they're like, can you count the Pokemon? Or, depending on what age it was, can you solve this puzzle? And so it was very academic, very educational, but the kids loved it because they wanted to solve the next clue and they wanted to get to the end to where they could, unlock the box kind of thing. And so so we did the best we could with it, I think, is the answer to that. It isn't the traditional Snapology experience that we really want everybody to have, where you're in person and interacting. But I think we really did a nice job filling the void. And from a franchise perspective, none of our franchises went out of business because they didn't have any programs to offer. And so we were able to keep, 166 people in business, through a very difficult time. And now as we're coming out, I mean, we had a record summer. I mean, we had our first $1 million month in system-wide revenue, and parents are just absolutely thrilled to have their kids out of the house and interacting. They're still wearing masks in some places. But everybody's kind of getting used to that, and they're willing to put on that mask so that 2 kids can be sitting side by side and they can be building a robot together and programming and doing all of those things. So COVID's been tough, but I feel good about the way we pulled through it.
Yeah, you've had incredible evolution, incredible foresight to know when to act quickly, how to act quickly. It's not really easy all the time to create engagement in a virtual world. And it sounds like you really did a phenomenal job with getting the kids to interact and continuing the social skills in an online format as you had previously when they were all in person.
Yeah, it is a really tough thing. And I have to say that I have an amazing leadership team. And our curriculum director, Ashley, is just phenomenal. And she's the one that created most of these programs. And then we provide the training out to all of the teachers who are going to teach them, and finding the right teachers and finding those teachers. Not every teacher can engage a child online. Some teachers are great in person, but online, it just really, you've got to be sort of extra enthusiastic and energetic, and you got to pay attention to all 20 squares, or however many kids you have. It's a challenge to teach online. And so we've been very blessed with great teachers, and like I said, my curriculum director, in coming up with these programs, it was just a phenomenal effort on her part.
This component of interaction to me is so incredibly beautiful, in large part because we have become a high-tech society the last 20 some years. So you're creating environments where these children are interacting, collaborating, having to solve robotics issues, programming issues together. They're having to communicate with one another. They're having to interact probably in a much higher capacity than they would if they're just home playing a video, right? Or they're just home doing whatever it is that they're doing. Even if it's just playing with Legos themselves, you are creating this beautifully, highly interactive, collaborative, do this together kind of an environment. And as a behavioral scientist who watches certain things get stronger and weaker by generation, these social skills we have seen dropping over the last couple of generations. So Snapology is addressing this through a way of play. So I guess my question to you is, can we take a shy, nerdy, geeky child and put them in this environment and bring this creative, imaginative, collaborative child out?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the objective, is to put a child in an environment where they can thrive, right? So my own son is a great example of that. I mean, he was very introverted, very shy when he was younger. And through Snapology, you know, he'd get up and he'd stand up in front of the class, and we have the kids present what they build, and they get public speaking skills. It's as silly as that almost sounds, because it's like a 6-year-old standing up and talking about his Star Wars ship, but it takes guts. I mean, it's public speaking.
Yeah.
You're getting up in front of, 19 of their peers and doing it, and just watching, my own son experience that change. Now he's an outgoing, energetic kid, who doesn't have a problem going up and talking to somebody. And he very much has, flipped the switch because of that. And I often tell a story that it really kind of struck me when we were first into this for a while, when I really started to realize the impact that we were having on the community. Is in middle school, the kids have to do something called a wax museum. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but what they do is that each child gets a person from history, and they have to pretend like they're in a wax museum, and somebody has to come up and push their button, and then they come alive, and they're like, I'm John Adams. I was, president of the United, and they'd go through and they have to give a speech, and it's really cute. But so I went in, and because I had a flexible schedule and owned my own business, I was able to go in during the day and watch the kids do all of them. And I could pick out on stage every Snapology kid, because the Snapology kids, they're walking around that stage like they owned the place. And other kids that didn't have maybe that experience of presenting to their peers and doing that were much more reserved and just kind of shied behind the desk or whatever. But man, my Snapology kids, when they popped up there, I was so proud, because I was like, you hit it, kid, you're doing great. And so that was one of the times where I realized what a true impact, a passive impact, really, because we're teaching them coding and robotics and engineering. It has nothing to do with history. But the social skills that were involved in that, and the impact that had, it really struck me, when I experienced that.
And what's really incredible is that public speaking is actually the number one fear of the population, even above dying, right? Even above death. So here you're taking young children and you're giving them these transferable that they will take with them throughout a lifetime. Just even if you fast forward it, think about, 18 years later, or my math is off, but you're the mathematician. Think about fast forward to when they're sitting at a college interview and presenting themselves, and they've had this experience speaking on stage or speaking in public, speaking on the fly, right? Imagine how much more of an impact they'll make on the person who is interviewing them. So these are just transferable skills that you're delivering. And like you said, this is one byproduct of when that wasn't even the skill set that you started out to cultivate. I love that. I think it's really incredible.
Me too.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that really differentiates us from our competitors, because I think when you're in a STEM field, sometimes you can tend to get too bogged down with the academics. The academics are actually the easy part. I mean, we've been teaching kids engineering and math and art and stuff like that for years and years, right? I mean, the hard part of STEM or STEAM is what truly makes it STEM or STEAM, which are those social development pieces and the critical pieces to make them successful. I mean, public speaking is one of them, and that's huge. But even just the collaboration and teamwork and problem solving and critical thinking, I mean, that's what makes you a successful adult. I mean, that's what, when you get your first job as an engineer or as a computer programmer, I've heard anecdotally that one of the biggest complaints of like your Googles and your GEs and folks like that are that these kids come out of school and they're brilliant, but you put them in a room and they all text each other. They don't know how to collaborate. They don't know how to talk to each other. They think they're the smartest kid in the room, and that maybe the next smartest kid has nothing to add to them or to add value. And when at a very young age, you put them in an environment and they learn that every kid in that room has something to offer and something that's interesting and unique or makes them think differently. When you grow up that way, it just naturally flows into your professional life, and it makes them more successful professionals.
I think too, as you're describing this idea of collaborating and respecting each other's genius, that every one of us is different. I know for me, when I have someone else to collaborate with, I may have had this great idea, this great imagination, but the minute we start to bounce it off of someone else or we're working together, a whole nother set of ideas come out of that. So I'm wondering if imagination really is a combination of a muscle, meaning the more we use it, the more imagination we have. But if we can stimulate it through what you're doing, which is in collaboration, where somebody else looks at it from this way, and I look at it from this way, and somebody else looks at it from, above, and all of a sudden we have a whole nother, whatever it is, a robot or whatever we're building or whatever we're creating. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think imagination is a muscle, and can we grow it through the bouncing back and forth, the socialization of children where they can build that muscle?
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I absolutely think that's part of it. I mean, I think your imagination is driven a lot by your experiences, right? So you're thinking about different things that happen, and then your imagination lets you take those experiences in like weird places, it takes you in different directions. And the more information, the more exposure you have to different people, to different things, then your imagination can go in different places because you've allowed that. So I think, absolutely. I mean, I just think about myself and having imagination as an adult when it comes to, disciplining my children, or when it comes to doing some sort of household improvement or something like that. And I think that whenever I have to use my imagination because the solution I came up with just didn't work, I always sort of am falling back on, okay, well, this time I did this, and what happened in the past? And I saw my sister did this one time, and my brother did this one time. And
Yes.
I think it's your life experiences that color that. And the more we can get kids interacting with each other and seeing different perspectives and seeing a different way. Wow, I never thought about it that way. Johnny built his ship with, the cockpit in the back. I would have never thought to do that. Wow, that's really interesting. That's really cool. I kind of like that. Maybe I'll do that next time. Something like that.
It sounds like it takes concepts from an idea to a we-dia.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think this is why, and I know my brain is gone. I think that's why Pinterest is so successful. You're putting your own ideas up there, others are putting their ideas up, and then together you're going, well, what if we combine those three things and create this other thing? Only you're doing it in a practical, social place with young children whose minds are limitless at this point, right? By giving them these additional life experiences and perspectives. This child may be an immigrant. This child may speak another language. This child may have traveled frequently. This child over here may be fabulous at math. This child over here may be a Minecraft wizard, right? And so you're putting them all in a similar situation where they're collaborating, co-creating, imagining whatever this other project is that they're working on. So you're stimulating all of those things. I am so envious of your role. Your job is fun.
It is fun. It is fun. It's great to just see kids experience success in that way, and to just see them interact and learn. And I mean, sometimes it's just so visible. I mean, you just literally can see them. Or we'll have parents say, when we had a child that was in class that would only build with, he had some extra needs, and he would only build with red bricks. And when we were able to finally get through to him, it took us 3 classes. He finally started building with other colored bricks. I mean, you would have think this kid like hit the lottery. Like his parents were so excited, like years in, like just to have him open his mind that little bit was so impactful to them. And I think about, neurotypical kids. I mean, when you're in a classroom with them, they're not shy. They're not afraid they're not embarrassed. They're not afraid to fail. They just have at it, and the experiences that they have and the just the places they can go with that are just limitless, because they don't have those same reservations that we have as adults. I mean, they just go at it and express their feelings, and they're not really concerned if the other kid really likes it or laughs at it, because they're kids. They just, kind of go, and we create an environment where everybody feels safe learning and exploring and trying new things and failing and succeeding. And it's super fun. I love it.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer in God, and I believe that everyone has God-given talents. And it sounds like at Snapology, what you're doing is helping them to really find more of their core, more of what makes them unique, and display that, whether it's through a figure that they're creating, or whether it's through the way they're presenting or the way they're collaborating. It sounds like there's just so much to delve into. And I really applaud the work that you're doing. I agree with Rebecca. I'm definitely very—
I want Laura's job.
Yeah. Hey, I wish all of my job was just interacting with the kids.
Yeah, that's true. You got that other actuary.
There are a few other things that I have to do as CEO, but I do very much enjoy it. So that's definitely true. But you know what you're saying, Tracy, is absolutely true. I mean, one of the reasons I love Snapology, and one of the things that my sister and I really tried to set down as a foundation, is we embrace everybody's differences. Yes. It does not matter where you've come from. It does not matter if what sort of extra needs you have, what sort of quirks you have. I mean, I'm a pretty quirky person myself. We embrace everybody's, differences, and we celebrate them. Your differences are what make you glorious. I mean, your differences are what make you you. And we want kids to feel that, and we want them to be confident in who they are. We want them to be comfortable in their own skin.
And even building on that, we talk about diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Imagine those life skills that the children are growing with, to be inclusive, to accept the idea of others when they get into these other positions, to be acceptable. It's such a larger society or societal conversation. Right? Such a tremendous conversation. And
it really is. And as we go forward, I mean, it's already started now. I mean, your classroom environment in most schools has children all the way from extra needs to neurotypical to gifted kids all in the same room. And children learn to work with one another, and they learn to be patient, or they learn to help each other, and they learn how to work with different, that's what life is, right? I mean, that's what, you need to learn how to work with different people. And if you can actually learn to embrace and celebrate their differences, and realize that, just because somebody's different doesn't mean they don't have something to add, but what they have to add is a new perspective and in a different way of thinking. And if you can embrace that and celebrate it, it makes you a better person. And so that's really what we're trying to promote.
Absolutely.
It makes you a better person, but it makes us as a society a better community. That the ripple effect, the impact these early learning experiences with this kind of diversity is going to have when they're 18, 28, 38, we're going to see the playing out of it, when they're in the workforce, when they're running as, politicians, when they're running their own schools, they're running their own businesses. These things are going to have a ripple effect long term.
Yeah, that's the hope, right? Start with the kids, help them be, I mean, with everything going on in the world, help them be accepting of anything, race, religion, educational differences, whatever, however we can help people embrace each other. It just makes society just a more productive place.
Yeah. Okay, Laura, I hate to do this. We're going to have to wrap this conversation up. I am absolutely enthralled with your story and with what Snapology is up to, and we could talk forever. But I think if I was to encapsulate Snapology, I would encapsulate your life, what you've created, you and Lisa, and Snapology in 3 words. I think it's all about interaction and all the benefits societally that comes with that. I think it's about imagination, and I think it's about impact. The 3 I's. That's how I would describe Snapology. Would you agree? Would you expound on that? What are your thoughts on?
No, I think that's great. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, imagination, interaction and impact. I mean, yeah, I think that's what it's all about. Yeah, we're just trying to build a better future.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. We sincerely appreciate it. Hopefully you'll come back another time and we get to enjoy learning even more.
Yeah, I would love to come back. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you.
And for the rest of you listening in, thank you for joining us here on The Franchise Woman, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. We'll see you next week for another episode.